Hey y'all, how you doing today? Surprise, surprise, today we are boss killers. I know normally I go through one particular subject and I break down that subject a paragraph at a time or maybe a step at a time, but this time we're actually going into the underground refinery floor 20 because I have been requested about that boss multiple times, but I slept on the refinery, so I didn't get to the boss until today. I'm not gonna lie, I had a little bit of trouble with it, so I went ahead and pre-recorded the fight earlier, as well as, since we've been doing a season 2 boss every video, we're going to cover the third out of fourth boss in season 2. We'll be doing the chapter 2-8 boss. Actually, we're doing them a little bit out of order, but that's the super defense boss. But without wasting any more time, I'm going to go ahead and play my pre-recorded fights so that I can narrate in post for them, for you, a little bit of what I'm doing and why I was doing it. Right after we look at, oh, hold on, let me go up there real quick because we have to break down the boss's attacks and abilities. So let's go ahead and take a look at this boss. Her attack is pretty mediocre, nothing that crazy. Her defense is nuts. So whatever we have to do, we have to bring defense break to lower that insane defense. We're going to want to bring attack buffs. If you have poison will tick based off her max HP. If you have max HP damage, that's going to be great to bring because you're not going to be doing a lot of damage unless you defense break the boss. So first skill removes all the debuffs and inability effects granted on yourself with a 60% chance. So basically it's a 50-50 shot whether or not you have a defense break on her or something. When her turn rolls around, she may get rid of it, she may not. That's why I had to try this fight a couple times. I was using Siam to defense break, so of course it's either attack buff, defense, or attack break or defense break. And then of course I had to deal with this RNG as well. So it took a few tries to actually get it down. Defense possesses a significantly high defense. Well, yeah, obviously we can see 3,200 defense is very high. Gains immunity against all behavior control effects, including knockback and pulling. So whatever she wants to do, she's doing it. You cannot interrupt her. You cannot stop her from doing it. She is just, going to do her thing, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Check fire inflicts damage to a random enemy by 100% of the attack. Not a big deal because she doesn't do that much damage. Throws an explosive cannonball at 2 enemies in the order of tanker, dealer, supporter, and rangers to inflict damage by 150% of the attack and removes their beneficial effects and knocks them back. So basically, it doesn't really matter who she targets because the range of the explosion is pretty big. Unless you're super spread out, it's going to hit everyone on your team anyways and will get rid of your attack buff. So definitely look out for that. We're going to be trying to move behind the boss as fast as possible so that she doesn't end up knocking us back into these tracking bombs. This is the biggest problem I had with this boss. It took multiple tries to figure out how to get around these. Summons 2 tracking bombs behind enemy forces. Tracking bombs are immune to provocation and continuously tracks down the designated target. Once the target comes into the explosive range, the bomb will explode. If the target is defeated before the explosion, the bomb will explode on the spot in the next turn. So she will summon these 2 bombs that, actually, I'm going to go over this right after we go over after this last thing. Inflicts damage to all enemies around you by 200% of the attack. Okay, so basically, she's going to put 2 bombs behind you. We'll pretend Kat and Amy are the bombs. So we want to be as far forward as we possibly can because these bombs are going to move a little bit closer to you every time they get a turn. So they get a turn, they move closer. Get a turn, they move closer. They pick a designated target to chase after. And once they reach that target, they will explode and more than likely kill them, if not get very, very close because they do high damage. You need a very built unit to be able to eat that attack, or a damage ignore buff will be nice if she doesn't remove it before they get to you. So how we stop these bombs is we put everybody as forward as possible as we can. We're going to be trying to move behind the boss, where I'm clicking here, as fast as possible so that if she knocks us back, she knocks us into the back walls instead of back closer to the bombs. So also, whenever the bombs start coming after us, we want to use Tala to immobilize the bombs. And I think in the recording I actually won. I didn't actually immobilize both of them, so it's not absolutely a requirement. but there are multiple ways to stop them from getting to you. You can path block them if they're targeting Amy and you put Iron in front. They're going to have to run around Iron like that and lowering their movement speed. So if you had Nadine, you could push them back. You could flip over and then knock them back. Or if you had anyone that displaces them, you can prevent them from reaching you or immobilize them, or you could try to stun them, but I've had more difficulty stunning them than I have immobilizing them. So the biggest problem with that as well is whenever they move towards you, they have a little bit of range. So as we like to do, if we go to the edge of our movement range, and then we use a rage skill, it resets our movement range. So if Iron was standing right here and I moved him right here, and then I used a rage skill and it's still his turn, I can now move him right there. If I use a rage skill and I do it again, I can move him again. She can actually do that with the bombs. So if the bomb is moving towards you and then she uses a rage skill, they will get to move towards you twice in a row. So you do want to immobilize them or block them in some way. But without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and play this pre-recorded recording so that you could see how I handled this fight in post. So I will go over with you the general team I am using at this time. I am using, of course, Siam, the cat, because she has a defense break on the first skill. And if the boss has such a high defense, we want to prevent that defense from being such a problem to deal with in the future. Now, I have brought Iron as well because his second ability will be able to do damage based off the boss's max HP. So whatever the boss's defense is will not matter because that last hit will be doing damage based off the max HP. And of course, I bring Bannon for the attack buff so that I can pair the defense break with the attack buff to get as much damage out as possible. And I have Amy here because she is one of my strongest attackers. And then as well, I brought Tala because these bombs that are going to be running after us, we definitely need to deal with them as fast as possible. So, as always, with this boss, it's kind of hard to tell whether or not you should wait for your supers, but I definitely waited for all my rage skills. Now, whenever this battle starts, you're going to want to move to the right with every ability you use. No matter what you're doing, even if you're passing turn, try to move behind the boss. And a good setup for this is going to be getting defense break with your first skill. And I didn't quite get the defense break on the first one, but I'm saving it for the second. Hopefully, I think I got it on the second one. And then I put down the bomb to save that for later, of course, as well. A thing with, if you bring Iron, his rage skill targets the target with the lowest HP. Those bombs have more HP than she does, so it will target her. We're trying to get this set up to where we can have, increased attack to our entire team, decreased defense to her so that we can do as much damage as possible, and crowd control to those mines so they don't reach us in time. So that's pretty much the setup of it, and here we go. Let's see how it worked as I did it. Once I got the defense break and the attack buff on, I used both of their rage skills. It brought her from 80,000 to 55,000. So that was a very good, 25K right there, which is a great start. Now, whenever these bombs start coming after you, immobilize them. Now, this one on the top resisted the immobilization, and it actually resisted twice. So I tried to use Siam's rage skill to stun it as well, and this bomb just did not want to stop. It did not stop coming at me. It is usually not that hard to immobilize the bomb, and then you can stay away from the first wave of bombs pretty easily. But this one just wasn't having it, I guess. So right there, I used Iron's second skill to do a little bit of max HP damage. I have her down pretty much to half health at this point. So this bomb, I think it took out like half my team. Let me see. Well, it took out Siam. Does this one actually end up reaching Amy? Because I did miss a very important immobilization. I think it is going to get her right here. Oh no, it's going for Iron, so it will go out of Amy's range, which will give me a chance to, get my setup going again. Unfortunately, I lost Siam for my defense break, so that is huge. But a good thing about Iron is the invincibility, so he can makeshift being a pseudo tank. So I have Iron built fully for damage, but since he has invincibility, he is a little bit tanky. Now, I think I'll try to explain the moves as I'm doing them. They're going for Iron and they're going for Amy. Iron and Amy are already on the opposite side, so what I did was I immobilized the robot in front, so the one behind it would have to move around it and not get the full length of its move area. See, it had to move down a little bit instead of just being able to walk straight towards her. I move away with every turn, trying to stay as far away from those bombs as possible. And one good thing about Iron is, since he is has the invincibility or the damage ignore, even if the bomb hits him, it's not a big deal. Now this, where Amy just lived with 2 health, plays into what I talk about all the time. How sometimes, you know, you might live with 1 HP, or you might die if you would have lived with 1 HP if you had powered up your runes to +12 or +15. So if it feels like it's not worth the investment to power up your equipment to +15, just think about how having it to +15 might have saved you, just like it saved me. With those little bit of stats needed to stay alive. Now I'm in a pretty good spot right now. She looks like she's about to die any minute. I believe I immobilized them. No. So I'm not going to be able to immobilize them again. I'm just going to have to nuke down the boss as fast as possible. I recorded this earlier this morning, so I'm having trouble remembering exactly how I did it. But I think at this point, since neither of the bombs are tracing Iron, Iron should be able to take her out at this point by himself. Another big thing is to have a penetration ring in your slot 4, because it will ignore a lot of the defense that the boss has. So it's not going to help you to crit for 800 versus if you could penetrate her defenses and maybe like not even crit for 1,000, or get a crit if you're lucky for 1,400. So having penetration on your ring makes this fight a lot easier as well. Did I try to stun the bomb? There's no way I got it. Yeah, my stun was resisted, but you actually can stun them. They just have a higher resistance for some reason. I don't know why. Able to immobilize that bomb again. And here we see the boss is pretty much on her last leg. And now that these, I don't think these bombs will even have time to reach me before I take care of her. One of them is facing Iron. The other one was actually tracing Bannon. So the thing about whenever Bannon used his ultimate there and he's no longer targetable, the bomb cannot target him, so it can't move towards him at all. So we just had to worry about keeping Iron away from everybody in a safe position so that the bomb would explode on Iron and not everyone else. Boss is getting down low. If I could get... trying to remember what I did. Yes. Okay. So as the bomb was going to explode, I used his ultimate, or his rage skill, to jump across the screen and get out of the bomb range. That's another thing. If your rage skill will end up moving you, or will end up making you untargetable, whenever the bomb goes to explode on you, you can use it at that time and the bomb will end up exploding on nothing. And this is pretty much it. I mean, she is... we had to go through multiple phases of the bombs. If we had Nadine, I feel like, of course, who did we end up losing very fast? Siam, or the cat. She ended up helping us in the beginning by helping us get off a very good head start with her defense break. But it may have been even easier just to bring Nadine to ensure that the bombs could not reach us in time. At this point, she's just like a few hits away. Hopefully this helps. I know that, like, there's multiple ways to defeat these bosses. A lot of people don't have these units built. My Siam is level 30. She has no equipment. She has no hero card. I just used whatever potions and experience potions I had to bring her up to 30. I got her 100% effect accuracy to try to defense break the boss, and just as much HP so that she could live, but she ended up not living anyway. So if you need to build somebody, it will not take that long to get the requirements you need to do this boss. Now that we've covered the underground refinery, we're going to be moving on to the Season 2, Chapter 2-8 boss. Now, we're going to be breaking down his abilities one at a time, as always, so that we can get a little bit of understanding of what we're dealing with here. So right off the bat, we can see he has a tremendous attack. If he hits you, he's going to be doing thousands upon thousands of damage, so you're going to want to bring something to mitigate that damage a little bit. His defense is, we'll get into that in a minute, but his HP is a little bit on the low side. So what is this defensive stance. Titan takes a defensive posture by default, and his defensive power will be greatly increased in the defensive posture. So what this means is that whenever he is just there standing still in his defensive stance, he's going to be taking like 20 damage. If you have an attack that does 10,000 damage, you can definitely expect it to only be doing 200. There is no way that you can defeat this boss without removing him from the defensive stance or working around defense in some way. If you have poison or something that does damage based off of max HP, this is going to be a great fight to bring that to, because you will be able to ignore the defense and just fight him based off of how much HP he has. One thing about this defensive stance, if you stun this boss, he will leave the defensive stance. So everybody starts with Amy. Even if your Amy is not built, I recommend putting some potions into her or doing a couple times 10 to get her to level 30. Just put some effect accuracy boots on her, and then whatever you can to make her do a little bit more damage and have a little bit more survivability. She should be standing in the back, so she shouldn't be taking too much damage anyways. But you do need stuns for this fight. Stuns are what make this so easy. It turns this from essentially a nightmare into a piece of cake. So moving on, Heavy Fist inflicts damage to the enemy by 100% of the attack and knocks the target back. So that doesn't sound like a big deal until you realize he has 8,000 attack. So every time he hits you, he is going to be doing a pretty decent amount of damage. Moving on to Soaring Earth, inflicts damage to the enemy with the highest attack by 110% and provokes them. So basically he's going to try and annihilate your squishies and get them out of the way so that whenever he's out of his defensive stance, they won't be doing too much damage to him. The point of the provoke is he wants to prevent people from stunning him. So if he gets a provoke onto you and you're unable to stun him, then you're just going to be first skilling, doing 20 damage or so, and not really affecting the boss very much at all. Ground Strike is going to be the same thing. He's going to do a normal amount of damage, and he's going to silence you for 2 turns so you cannot stun him. This boss's whole purpose is to prevent you from stunning him while having an insane defense so you cannot first skill him to death. And last but not least, Invincible Defense. He'll become invincible for 1 turn and recover his HP by 30% whenever the invincibility effects continues into the next phase. So if you strip his invincibility or remove beneficial effects from him, you can actually get rid of that invincibility and stop him from recovering that health at all. But what we're going to be trying to do is ending him before he even gets to that point, because whenever you get rid of his whenever you stun him, he becomes a very easy target. So without any more waste of time, let's go ahead and jump into the pre-recording where I will show you in post with commentary how I handled this boss. So let's get right into the fight. As always with these fights that have 2 waves, this is a very good wave to end up passing all of your turns once there is only 1 unit left, so that you can increase the rage bar of all of your units and have your rage abilities available to be used on the boss. And for this boss, we will be wanting to use them immediately. A good thing about this wave too is that if you kill the succubus, Barbara does not do a lot of damage. So if you leave Barbara to sit there and attack your units, she is probably not going to kill anybody unless maybe your equipment is not powered up at all, or if you're using a very low level unit. Other than that, you can just sit there and eat almost all of her attacks without any worry about her actually ending one of your units. So that is a great wave to power up our rage skills. Now, whenever we get to this boss, we want to stun him because it will take him out of the defensive stance, and then we will be using our setup where we will put the AoE attack buff on everybody. I don't think I brought a defense break, but it won't be a problem anyways because of how much raw damage we've brought with Amy and Iron. Another good thing about Iron is his invincibility. Whenever he uses his 3rd skill and obtains the damage ignore buff, is going to ignore that massive damage this boss is able to put down. So you'll probably see that firsthand. I don't quite remember how these fights went, so I'm just trying to narrate as we go. But if I had to guess, I would take Iron and use his 3rd skill to eat some of the damage. But first, let's get our setup. We did attack buff, crit rate buff, and then this should stun him. Yep, we got the stun. His resistance is super low, so that at this point we are just going to end up doing a lot of damage with Amy's rage skill. And I moved Iron to the back, but I didn't use his 2nd skill. Should have definitely used his 2nd skill. Oh, I did. Okay, yes. So right there, right after 1 phase of turns, the boss is already well under 50% of his HP. So that is a great start to the fight. since we have used Amy's stun, I still have Nadine's stun available. So if I wanted, I could actually stun the boss if I was close enough, but my Nadine wasn't close enough to actually do it, unfortunately, and that would have been a 2-turn boss fight. But we'll go ahead and wait to do that anyways. I think the boss ended up getting off an invincibility and a heal, which will be a good way to show how that ability works and if we can get around it. Now, at this point, we want to ignore the damage because, as we see, we'll be ignoring 6,500 damage, 5,000 damage, and another, I think that was 3,500. I couldn't quite see, but yes, a big amount of damage has been ignored by that buff. So if you have Popo, it would be good to bring him as long as you aren't sacrificing too much damage. Now, let's see. I think I go through my setup again. Oh, I actually ended up first skilling. I should have definitely attack buffed there. I must have been distracted, but I think I'm just trying to get rid of this ad. All right, now that Iron is silenced, he is not going to be able to use his rage skill or take advantage of his abilities, but I was able to stun again with Nadine so that I could get some hefty damage out while he is stunned. There's the attack buff. That's what I was waiting for. Max range with Tala to try and get a crit. Very nice, very nice. Now, if my rage skill was up, it would have been a big hit on the boss. And now I think I'm out of stuns. I don't think Amy's stun is ready. Oh, it is ready. So this is going to be the end of it. I'm going to stun the boss, and then at this point, I'm just going to use my abilities to take care of him. So this boss essentially becomes very, very easy if you have multiple stuns. He just sits there and has to take it because his resistance is so low. So hopefully that helps you with this boss. If you don't have these stunner units built, it's not going to be too hard, especially with free equipment removal day being today, to just get some equipment, affect accuracy, and throw it on them, and then maybe use some experience potions to power them up. So hopefully that helps you. That's going to do it for me today. Hopefully that helps you get a little bit of understanding and be able to choreograph a team or strategy for you to take on the Underground Refinery Floor 20 boss and to be able to take on the Season 2 Chapter 2 8 boss. So that'll put everybody a little bit farther towards, our goal of completing the story and completing the Underground Refinery. Also, take advantage of today. You can remove your equipment and cards and stuff for free. That's actually how I was able to complete this video for so cheap, because I was able to, pass around equipment to people and not have to worry about the cost of removing all the equipment. So have a little bit of fun with that today, and that's it for me. I'll catch y'all later. Bye.